Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart, and today I have Tom Campbell with me. Now we're going to talk about a few different things. This is kind of the holiday, the pre-holiday show where we talk about Thanksgiving before we talk about the holidays of Christmas and the energy of that. But I had a little bit of a breakthrough this past week while I was doing some work for someone, and it was around time. And before we get into that, welcome to the show, Tom. I love having you here. It's been a bit of a crazy beginning to this show because it's taken almost an hour to get to a place where we can actually do a recording. But, things happen. I don't know. Are we in a Mercury retrograde? We may actually be one. I have no idea, but have a feeling maybe. Anyway, so everyone knows Tom, and you can find out a lot more information if you go to his website, mybigtoe.com, or if you go onto his YouTube station. I mean, there's like hundreds and hundreds of hours that you can enjoy and find more information about Tom. We like to go through the practical application. So back to my revelation this week it was around time and how, when I first kind of joined into this journey of mine, I took NLP, and NLP's big thing was, go back to your past and you can change what happened in it. And it's like, I never felt like I could necessarily change it. And I think there's so much in the spiritual journey that there's so many things that are incorrect. But what I realized was maybe I couldn't change what happened in the past because it's already happened. But what I can change, and what we do have a choice about, is how we responded to those situations. And most of the time, the story that we have around our life was created by the age of 7, where we had absolutely no emotional maturity. I mean, emotional maturity doesn't even happen until our late teens to our early 20s. So we're kind of going in blind up into the age of 7, and we have no context. So Tom and I were discussing it. We have a few examples, but basically what I came to realize was we can change what happened in the past, not what happened, but how we respond to it. And therefore we can shift those fears that were sort of created before the age of 7, which have really been replaying the pattern over and over again in our lives until we can emotionally be mature enough to understand that that wasn't what happened, and change it so that we can really shift our fears. So let's talk about that.
Okay. I agree with you completely that you cannot change the past. The past is a done deal. It has happened and you can't unhappen it. It just is what it is. But you can change the attitude you have about certain events in the past. You can change the way you look at those events and the effect that they have on you to where it changes you. So it's not that you're changing the past, but you're changing yourself, and is that you see things now in a larger context and you realize, the bigger picture of things that were going on then. And it wasn't the way you saw it when you were, 3 years old. Because when you were 3 years old, 1, you were very self-centered, and 2, I don't mean you, Laurie. I mean, everybody is very self-centered. You're self-centered when you're born, you're self-centered. It's all, you see yourself and then there's the rest of the world. Right. And you have this sense of dualism very much there, that it's you and there's this world. And when you're very small, it's a very scary world. All sorts of things, seem either magical or frightening, or they somehow just work. Your parents are godlike, it's just that kind of a magical place. Well, those magical places can get scary sometimes, and they can get frightening. And one of the examples is I got an email from a person, this was now about 3 or 4 months ago, who finally realized that his lifelong problem with feeling inadequate, with feeling failed, like they just weren't good enough. They could never be good enough. They kept trying and trying and trying, but somehow they just never came out the end feeling like they were good enough. And all of that started when mom came home, gave 2 younger siblings a present. I think he said gave them teddy bears. And he didn't get one. And he internalized that as he wasn't good enough. You know, maybe he had just done something else, like stole some cookies out of the cookie bowl or something that gave him a little, sense of, being wrong. And, it's just the wrong, just things just happened at that time. Yeah, maybe him stealing a cookie with mama, not giving him a teddy bear. Of course, none of that was what was actually going on. His mother didn't think he was inadequate or not good enough. And whether he stole a cookie or not was really not important. It didn't have anything to do with the mother's choice or anything else. But when you're 3 years old or 4 years old, your perspective is very, very small. And that's where his feeling of just couldn't be good enough was always, there was always this sense of inadequacy. And that's where it came from. So once he got back and he looked at that, he realized what a error that feeling had been, that there was no such thing from his mother. And he still had, though, to grow out of the feeling of not feeling good enough. So it doesn't necessarily work that when you discover, you have that aha moment, that's where that feeling comes from. It's not necessarily just that feeling of inadequacy just melts and goes away instantly. Because that's a deep thing. It's not in your intellect. If it was in your intellect, you could just say, oh, I see it. What nonsense that was, and throw it away and it would be gone. But it doesn't live in your intellect. It lives in a much deeper place at your being level. And even when you see the foolishness that started it, you still have to overcome it. But that helps to know that there isn't any intrinsic, dysfunction. There isn't any intrinsic not worthy inside of you. It's just the way you are interpreting your reality. Because you feel that you're inadequate, then every time something happens, any tiny thing that you can interpret as a slight or interpret as a put down or interpret as you didn't do it right, you turn in a report to your boss, and your boss looks at it and says, oh, that's pretty good. There's a few things I'll have to fix, but thanks a lot. Well, you don't hear that was good and thanks a lot. You only hear there was a few things in it I have to fix. Oh, you weren't good enough. You didn't do it well enough, you see. So you interpret that your boss is unhappy with the report because you're just not good enough, when that wasn't really what was going on at all. So you interpret things in your life to reinforce that feeling. And if you've been doing it like this person was for, 40 to 50 years, then, well, that's a part of you. You still have to let go of that fear. So finding the source doesn't always just make it go away.
No, definitely not.
What it does is give us an understanding that our reality is how we interpret it.
Right.
It's not what's necessarily out there.
Right.
And for that, we have to start looking at our ego and our beliefs and our fears and try to get through them, try to get beyond them to where our fear is not what is making our choices. Right. So we choose to feel inadequate because we believe that we are, and we have a fear that we are. So getting rid of it is a more difficult thing, but you can get rid of it if you just keep trying, just keep working on it. You have an intent, intention, change, future probability. So if you have an intention, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm not going to continually interpret myself to be inadequate. I'm going to let that go. And as soon as you catch yourself doing it, you say, no, I don't want to be that way. Not, I don't want to act that way, because it's not about acting. It's not about putting on a brave face and smiling and denying that you feel what you really feel. Denial isn't going to help. It's just going to make it worse. It's about changing who you are, changing the way you interpret events, which is not only changing yourself, but it will change the reality that you live in. So no, time always runs forward, doesn't run backwards. All the things you did, you can't take them back. They are what they are. All the things you say and do, they affect other people. And, you can't take all that back. So all those people weren't affected that way. Yes, they were, they are, but you have to accept that past. If you did things that you are really not proud of, things that were horrible things to do, well, you just have to look at it and accept it and say, well, that's who I was then. I'm growing. It's okay. I'm changing. I'm not like that anymore. I wouldn't do those things anymore. But who I am now today is the sum total of all the choices that I made in the past. And where I am today, is pretty good. I feel much better. I feel good. I feel healthy. I feel, that my spiritual growth is doing well. So even if you have those skeletons in the closet, let them be, accept them. Say, okay, they're mine. I did that. And no, I'm not proud that I did that, but I'm not really ashamed that I did that either. It was just me, who I was at the time. Should be no shame. No proudness or pride either. Just that's the way it was. I made mistakes. I learned from them. I don't do that anymore. Now let's go on. So you can't let the past haunt you, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you because of things you did in the past, or bad choices you make, or I always make bad choices. You just have to accept the choices you made or what you've made. Now go on and do better. That's the way you grow up, is by, some people can't really go out and live their life, be authentic, because they're afraid. They're afraid they don't know how. Okay, just, get rid of your fear or do this, and they can't start because they don't know how to do it. They're looking for a recipe, so they go to training courses and they read books and they do all things, looking for a recipe to tell them how to do it. Well, you will never get a recipe to tell you how to do it, because it's not an intellectual problem. You can solve intellectual problems by reading books, talking to other people, and going to training courses, but you can't solve your emotional problems by reading or doing anything. You have to deal with them, accept them, and grow up. Change yourself if you don't like it. Be different. That's the only thing that works. So time keeps moving forward, and we can revisit the past and learn from it, change ourselves from it. So the past is a very useful thing. Not only can we see things in bigger contexts, but we can see kind of our own growth and the mistakes we've made, and reevaluate our choices and learn from that. That's the point. Don't ever be afraid of making a mistake or doing something wrong. Be authentic and just do it, because that's you. And if it turns out badly, well, look at it and learn from it. Grow up, become different. And if you look at it and you're pleased with it, well, then do more. You see, but the idea is I can't make, decisions, or I can't actually get any traction on my problems or whatever because I don't know how. That's just avoidance. Mm-hmm. That's not really dealing with it. You don't have to know how. You have to just want to do it. And just that intent itself of really wanting to do it will change it. That will change it. But if you just want it to happen, you don't really want to do it in the sense of doing whatever work is involved. You want to swallow a pill and magically have your fears go away. Well, that kind of want is an intellectual want, and that won't make much difference. Nothing much will happen. When I say you have to want to do it, I don't mean want at the intellectual level. You have to want at a deep level. You have to really want to change. And most of us are afraid of change. So yes, we'd like to change, but we're sort of comfy the way we are, and we've been this way for a long time, and it's been working, and we're kind of afraid to mess with that because we've got this delicate balance of relationships with our, spouses and our kids and our neighbors and our boss. And if we were just to change in the middle of that, what would happen? Would it all fall apart or what? So we talk about change, we talk about growing up, but a lot of times we don't really want to, in the sense that, at a being level. We want to at the intellectual level. So we talk about it and we go to training courses and we read books, and it never seems to do much. It gets us excited for about 2 weeks until that wears off, and then, we're right back where we were to begin with. It doesn't really change our life in any dramatic way. So yes, time moves forward. You have choices, and by those choices, you'll grow up or grow down or just keep struggling. But you have to really want to do it at the being level to make a change. But the good news is if you really want to do it at the being level, it will change. You will get rid of those fears. You don't have to live in the same struggling reality. You can live in one that's full of peace and happiness and good relationships, but you have to really want it. You have to accept that you will become a different person, and that's scary. And all those other relationships and things that are out there, they will probably become different too. Most of them will become a lot better, and the dysfunctional ones will probably drop away. Yes, it'll change your life, but that's a good thing.
I guess when I think about time, everybody says, time's just an illusion. There's really only one moment, and it's the now moment. And I think a lot of times when we're intellectualizing and we're analyzing everything, we're really either going back into the past or we're worrying about what could happen in the future. And so when we're in that now moment, we're not present. We're worrying about stuff. We're re-experiencing, where our mind will only, our mind has already defined, certain emotions and how they feel, and certain events, and how you're supposed to respond to those events, because that's how you responded in the past. And so we continue doing that because we're not conscious. We're not in this moment, and we're just allowing things to happen. We're not living consciously and being aware of, how we're thinking and how we're feeling. And this is the challenge that I keep, I keep trying to assist people. It's like, when we talk about being, and it's a choice, we really do have the choice on how we want to respond in each moment. We're the only ones that can choose that. Yes, if something happens that's, devastating to you, you want to be authentic. You don't want to deny it and push it down and not allow it to assist us, because everything that happens for a reason. And if we're responding in a certain way, we probably have a fear attached to it. But at that same time, we can then choose, do we want, it's kind of that saying, suffering is a choice. We don't have to suffer. We can choose how we want to be, but it's a hard concept for people when they're in a place of pain or fear.
Well, I disagree with that concept about time as an illusion. Time is not an illusion. Time is a real thing. If time was an illusion, then change would also be an illusion. Because to change, you have to, there has to be time, right? You have to be, well, here's what I was before and here's what I am now. I've changed. Well, that requires time. And if time is an illusion, then change is an illusion. And what's left? If nothing changes and there's no time, then we're in this deterministic thing that just doesn't do anything, just is a static, dead thing. And that's not what we are. Time is a real thing, and time is a fundamentally real thing. And time is the key thing that we have to work with. Change is what we're all about. We're here to change ourselves. That's the point. We're here to grow up, and it takes time to do that because we have to make choices, and these choices have to be choices that move us toward what we want to become. not just keeping on becoming what we are because we don't know what to do other than that. You see, so yes, many people live, I call it like the zombie state, where they're not in the present. They're not really attached to anything. They live their whole life doing what they think they should be doing, and they're always, like zombies. They're not really connected to who they are and what they are, even their relationships, even their real significant relationships, to spouses and children and parents and so on. All of them are just them, the image going through its motions to do what it thinks it should be doing. You see, that sort of thing. And when you're in that mode, you're basically a zombie. The choices are all being made by your fears, by your intellect of what it thinks it should be doing, and the intellect is only operating because of your ego and beliefs and fears. The only reason your image is there is because it's molded by those fears. All right, the thing I should do is I should go over and look in on my elderly parents and see if they're all right. That this is what a child does. It's my obligation, and you go do that. And you get up and you go to work and you turn a crank at work, and this is what you do, and it's your obligation, and you do that. And you have to be nice to your children and make sure they get a healthy lunch, and that you pat them on the rumps and send them off to school, at the appropriate time so they're not late, because that's what a good mama does. And you just do all the things you do. You're doing them because that's what you think you're supposed to be doing. And you're trying to do it right. So you're working out of your intellect, and all of your choices are fear-based in that you fear not being that good son or daughter, not being that good mother or that good employee or something. That's a fearful thing. Well, you might think, well, then that's okay. That fear keeps you going, but no, it's the wrong attitude. Yes, you can go through life as a zombie and basically kind of get by, but you won't be enthusiastic. You won't be really happy. There won't be much joy in your life. You feel as though life's just passing by one day after another, and it really doesn't have much meaning in it. So you get in this kind of existential state of being on the treadmill, being on the merry-go-round, and you just can't get off. But it's meaningless. It doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled. It doesn't leave you feeling satisfied. It's empty. And that's the thing that most people are. They're living, the zombie life, where they're just trudging through life doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. And they've been doing that since they were, 5 years old in kindergarten, when the teacher tells them what it is they're supposed to be doing, and they know to make the teacher happy, you do whatever the teacher, wants you to do. And they've been living that way ever since. And yes, you can get by that way, and you can get through birth all the way to death, and people will even say nice things about you at the end. Oh yeah, they were a good son, a good daughter, a good employee, a good mother, and everybody goes along. But you see, that's not really you. When you're being authentic, you have enthusiasm, you have joy, you get real satisfaction from the things you do. Life is full. Instead of living in this kind of gray, black and white world of things you have to do, you live in a place full of passion and full of caring and full of joy and relationships that are meaningful, not because you have certain tasks you have to do to make people happy, but because you want to, because you care about those people. So it's just a difference. One life is something you're plodding through like a zombie, and you feel very numb in it. Just on this treadmill, nothing really means anything important. Well, it doesn't, because you're not making your choices for the right reasons. Right. You're making the choices because of your fear, because of this is what you have to do. Otherwise, people wouldn't like you. Fear. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a good mother. Fear. You should do things because that's who you are, and you're expressing yourself, not because you're afraid of what other people will think if you don't do them. It's just if you looked at two people, you might look at them and not know whether they were a zombie or whether they were, living, authentically. It's not the actions that's important. It's why. It's the motivation. It's the intent. It's the why are you doing this? If you're doing it because you think you should, and you're living in the past, assessing how people are rating you and whether or not you've lived up to, what you should be doing, and you're living in the future of what is it do I have to do to keep that good image of me being a really good person and getting along and so on, then you're a zombie, and you won't have this sense of being fulfilled. You won't have a lot of joy in your life. Oh, sure, you'll laugh sometimes. You'll have a few happy moments, but most of your life is going to be this plain gray treadmill kind of an existence, and that's not the way it should be. All of your life should be vibrant. Everything you do needs to be done because you are committed to doing that for reasons that are much deeper than you think you should, or it's your duty. You do it because you want to, and you'll want to because you care. But people are afraid to be authentic because they think that, well, if I let all my structure go that tells me how I should act, I'm not sure who I'd be or what I'd be or how many people I'd disappoint or how everybody might think that, I wasn't a good mother, or daughter or whatever, employee. So I'll just keep going the way it is because it works. That's the way most people are. And that's why most people are not really happy, and most people are struggling through their life. And most people are, they say, well, if I just get this one last thing in line the way I want it, then everything will be great after that. Well, you either never get that thing in line, or when you do, you find out it doesn't really make that difference because the problem is inside you. It's not that outside thing that you think is the problem. So, yes, you are right. Living in the past, living in the future, not being authentic is a plain gray treadmill of life that is not very rewarding and not really where you want to be. It's just getting by. But the worst thing about it is that you're not learning anything either. You're not really growing up. You're not changing. You're living out of your fear and out of your intellect, and you don't grow up. So the bad thing is that next time you haven't grown up any, you have to start from the same place doing the same thing. Until you change yourself, you're stuck with that. This reality is one where you have to grow up, change yourself by, a force of will, because you want to do better. You want to be better. You want to be authentic. You want joy in your life. And if you want these things at a deeper level, not just in the intellect, then you will change. But as long as you just keeping on because you're keeping on, and so far, you're not rocking anybody's boat, and, nobody's angry, nobody's mad at you, then just keep on because you fear people being angry with you if you don't do it right. Well, you won't learn anything. You'll come back and you'll have all the same lessons to learn that you had the last time, and the time before that, and the time before that. And so on your life goes, plodding through it, doing what you think you should, trying to be a good person, but you're not trying to be a good person because you want to express the goodness that's inside of you. You're trying to be a good person because that's what you think you should be, not because that's what you are. You see, there's a difference between being a good person and acting like you're a good person. Right. You see, so that's the difference. Again, it's not the actions. Two people, one that's authentic and one that's not, you might look at them and not see much difference, but the difference is inside. If you spend a little time and the one that is just kind of getting through their day and the one that has got a lot of joy and positive and very happy, that's the difference between them, not necessarily what they do. It's how they express themselves, how authentic are they? Are they really living life, or are they just getting through it? That's, there's a huge difference there.
Definitely. I think that's, there's a lot of people that are just getting through it because they just don't see any other way. But
Well, they're afraid of change.
Okay.
Change is scary because when change comes, you're no longer in control. You see, change changes you, and you don't know exactly who you're going to be on the other side when you come through that change. And will that person not get along? Well, at least I'm getting along now. I'm getting through it, right?
Right.
So you don't want to necessarily go in there and tear up the foundation, that's underneath of you. Well, it requires courage to change and to become someone different. But it also, there's a great reward in that. If the person you become is an authentic person who is good and is kind, rather than acts that way, who does things because they want to, because they feel like it. The reason they go over to help out their elderly parents is because they really care, not because it's their duty, not because they think they should, because they really care at a deep level. And you may say, well, okay, I mostly go through life in the motions, and the reason I go to my parents is because I care about them, because they're my parents. That's different, you see. I'm talking about that's acting, and it's acting because, yeah, they are your parents and you do care about them. I don't mean that you don't care about anything, but there's a difference between that and going there, not with the idea that, well, it's going to take 2 or 3 hours and it's going to be a bore and it's this and that, and I'll have to do this and I'll have to do that, and I'll have to take them down to the drugstore and bring them back, and I'll be glad when that's done, and then I can go on and do something else. You see, it's not that you don't care about your parents, but that's different than, I really like going there because I can help them, because they can't take care of themselves and I can do things for them they can't, and it's very meaningful to them, and that makes me feel good because it's meaningful to them, because I love them, I care about them, and so you feel good because other people feel good, not because you feel good because you've discharged your duty and now you can go discharge some other duty. You see, so it's, I'm not saying that people who are zombies don't care about anybody but themselves. I'm just saying they're doing things for the wrong reason. It's the wrong intention, the wrong motivation. You do things out of love. And that love is a passionate love, not just okay, yeah, I love my parents. Of course, everybody loves their parents. I love my children. Everybody loves their children. And so I'll do this and I'll do that for them, even though it's kind of a pain in the neck and I really don't like it, but I'll go do it anyway because, I care for them. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you want to go do it and you find pleasure in it because you find pleasure in being helpful, pleasure in helping somebody else. So it's a different thing. I'm trying to make it so people can kind of see the difference. Otherwise, it's easy to brush it off and say, well, yeah, that's not me. I'm authentic. I like my parents and I go help them out. But if you live out of the head and you live out of a sense of duty and you live out of this kind of bland, gray existence, you won't find a lot of satisfaction in life. You won't find that your life is joyful. It just is, and you're getting by, and it's okay. And that's if you're successful. For a lot of people, it's not even okay. It's miserable and it's painful and it hurts and it's annoying. But if you're really doing this really well, then it's just okay. But life doesn't have to be like that. Life can be much better than okay. It can be just fun and pleasure and joy and all those things almost all the time, if you have the right attitude, if you do things for the right reasons.
And I think that's where we can sort of have a choice again, where, we can look at our lives, like, as they're saying, this is coming up. This is going to be posted in November. So, we're thinking of Thanksgiving coming up, not for us because ours was last month, but for you in America. So, Thanksgiving, everybody feels that duty and obligation to go to Thanksgiving dinner or to have people over or to do all that stuff that is an obligation or a duty. And I guess what you're saying is that we have that choice. In every moment we can say, wait a minute, it's not no, I don't want to do anything, because then we'll get back into the getting stuck and not doing any change. And, well, if I don't feel good, then I shouldn't do it. That's kind of the backward way of looking at things. It's like, let's choose to actually get excited about doing this because we do care, because we do have a heart and we want to share that with other people. So it's like, instead of thinking of, oh, it's a duty and I don't really want to do it, it's like, okay, we have the choice right now to do it from a place of love instead of from a place of fear. Because as soon as duty, obligation, that's all fear. That's all fear-based. That's never from a place of love. But we can choose to actually step into that place by saying, okay, well, if I don't feel good, why don't I feel good? And can I change that? Like, can I honestly come from that place of feeling good? Like, I think sometimes, we get into the patterns that we don't even recognize that they're patterns, but we think we're, growing and changing and moving forward. And then all of a sudden, something, especially when it comes to family, like that's what the holidays bring up the most, is that, when it comes to family, those were our original triggers. Like, those were the things that sort of really defined us, or we've allowed to define us. And we can say, hey, let's consciously be more aware of how we're feeling instead of what we're doing. Like, that's my blog this month, is that, doing is sort of a means to an end. It's the way to get there, but we get to choose how we want to be in what we do.
Sure.
So we can make that choice. So when we have the family events, instead of seeing it as an obligation, beginning it with, yeah, I really want to do this. I want to share. I want to join with family. And then every time you feel yourself falling back into the old pattern, you get that opportunity again and again and again to re-choose how you're doing it. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, sure. You see, it's a really good example, the family thing. And yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's the family thing. It's the spouse. It's the children. It's the people that are really close to you, because that brings out who you are inside. And yes, some people will say, well, okay, the problem is I'm authentic, but my family are all zombies. My family's, they're just going through the motions. They're only there because it's an obligation for them to be there. And I'm here because it's an obligation for me to be here and do this. So everybody is going through the motions. Everybody lives in that gray space, on a treadmill. And it's just, I can't be positive there. If I come out and I'm all enthusiastic, people will make fun of me. Well, what drug have you been taking, and that sort of thing. And all I'll get is put downs if I'm like that. But the thing is, you see, the whole problem is one of everybody being too self-centered. It's about you.
Right.
It's about you. All right, I'm going to have all these zombies, over my house. And, I'm really already waiting for when it's over, even though it hadn't started yet.
Yeah. So
all these zombies have all their problems, sometimes they're snide, sometimes they're rude, sometimes they want to run your life for you, or they're loud, or they're, they have all these issues. And the idea is that you would rather be by yourself because, you don't have to deal with their issues and their stuff and their problems that way. Right. Well, you see, that's self-centeredness. It's about you. You want to do things that make you feel not so put upon. And they're all feeling the same way. So yes, there's a bunch of zombies all getting together for a zombie party. And that's often the feel of it. But you see, it's just, that's your self-centeredness. You can say, all right, so there's my Uncle Fred, and he's always pushy and thinks he knows everything and so on. He always tries to, he asks me about this and that, and then he tells me what it is I should be doing, and I resent that. Well, as long as you look at it that way, in terms of you being self-centered and him impinging on you, and you don't like that, That's all about you. You should look at Uncle Fred and say, well, Uncle Fred is that way because of a reason. He feels that way. Is Uncle Fred a happy person? You know, is he full of joy and love and whatever? No, he isn't. He's suffering, you know, and he's trying to get along the best he can and just do the things he has to do for his own reasons. And then you can get some compassion for Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred is doing what he does because of his own fears, his own needs, his own sense of who he is and what he is. He maybe has to be very forward like that and aggressive because he feels so inadequate that if he isn't like that, then he just, you know, couldn't even be there. He'd have to go sit in a corner someplace by himself. So that's the way he deals with his insecurity. So once you understand that all of these people are real people with real, you know, things going on inside of them, choices that they make, then you have compassion for them. Okay, now when you have that compassion for Uncle Fred, he doesn't upset you anymore. He doesn't annoy you because you can go over and put your arm around him and yeah, he's telling you how to run your life, but it doesn't bother you anymore, you see? You're not looking at it from the self-centered person as Uncle Fred is doing this to me and I don't deserve it and I, me. You can say, poor Uncle Fred, I'm just going to give that guy a hug. I'm going to let him talk on because that's the way he feels about it. I'm going to be nice to him, and maybe he'll feel just a little better at the end of the day just because I listened to him and I didn't brush him off. And he gets the brush off. That's why he's so insistent, you know, the way he talks to people, because he's always getting the brush off. Well, if you just sit and listen to him and actually deal in the conversation rather than, yeah, thanks, well, I got to go now, you know, then it'll change him, you see? So it's that. Once you think about other people, it's not about you. It's about all these zombies that are coming to your house, you know, or you're going to their house. And if you see them as real people, valuable people, struggling as best they can, dealing with the life in the only ways they know how, from all the choices they made up to this point, that's who they are. And if you approach them with caring and love and compassion. So it's not about you. It's about them. Listen to them. Feel the pain. Commiserate with that pain. You know, help it if you can, and so on with all the people. You see, now everybody else will maybe go home and go, boy, I'm glad that's over. But you won't, because you will actually have done something real. You will have connected with people. You will have listened to people. You will have felt their pain. You will have felt their joy sometimes. You'll feel whatever, and you can really communicate with them. And pretty soon, you'll be the favorite person in the whole family. Everybody likes you. You're such a great person. You're no longer the zombie, you see. So they will start to feel better, and as they feel better, they can grow up. As you grow up, you help everybody else grow up around you. So the idea that you go and act your way through life, doing what you think you should, is a fearful way that keeps you from growing up. It's a self-centered way that always keeps you thinking about how I feel and what those people do to me and for me. And well, if they're not doing anything for you, then you have no use for them. They're just there yammering on about their own life, and you know, that doesn't mean anything to me, so I don't want it, you know. It's boring. It's not about me. It's not about my interest. It's not about what I want to talk about. Therefore, I'm not interested. I want to go, you know, I want to do something else. It's because people are so self-centered that they can't really connect to other people. Everyone's just their own little self-centered person acting out their fears with each other, and everybody's relieved when they get to go home, you see? So it's this, you know, so being self-centered and being fearful are just two expressions of the same thing. When you're fearful, you're self-centered. Fear is all about you. That's just the core fundamental nature of fear, is that it's about you. So that fearfulness makes you self-centered. That self-centered makes it difficult to deal with other people who are also self-centered. A bunch of self-centered people all come together in an imaginary celebration. You know, it's like, yeah, it's a zombie picnic, right? So that's the problem. Well, you don't have to find a different family. You just have to not be that way. And you can find some joy and some sense of pleasure, even if you're interacting with zombies, because they're real people with real hearts, real needs, trying the best they can to get along, and in the only way they know how, for their own reasons. And if you just stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about them, you'd find ways that you could relate to them. You'd find ways that you see that they're real people, and you have compassion for them, and you will help them grow up too. So that's the thing. We're all in our little, in our little I, me cocoons, and we do not, we judge everything and everybody in terms of, what does this do for me? If they don't make me happy or make me laugh or bring me presents or, say nice things about me or whatever, then they're boring and not important and just, tiresome, and I just as soon not be around them. But if they do nice things for me, then I like them, because after all, it is just about me. You see, that's where people are, in this self-centered cocoon. And if it's not about them, then it's not interesting. Yeah, they can go do things for their elderly parents, but that's really not about them. So they do it because there's duty, and yes, they care for their parents and they want to do that sort of thing, but still, it's not something that's joyful for them, because it's really not about them. And the only thing that brings them joy is themselves and their own, what they get, not what they can give. But when you get to the point that your joy comes from what you give rather than what you get, now you can have fun interacting even with zombies, because you can give to anybody and everybody. And if that's where your joy comes from, your life will start to be full of joy itself, because your joy comes from giving, and you can give to almost any situation.
It's true. I think that that's definitely that piece, is that as soon as you feel yourself getting triggered at a family event or at any event, it's because you're just thinking about you.
Yeah, it's all about you and what's good for you and what makes you feel good and what, makes you not feel good. And so get a bunch of people, every one of them's thinking about themselves and what makes them feel good, and put them together in a room and ask them to socialize, and you get a zombie picnic, right? You just don't get, you don't get real stuff going on. You get cocktail chatter. Everybody talks about the weather and, a few other safe topics like that. And then at the end of it all, everybody goes home and nobody's particularly happy or whatever. They've done it. All right, we've done it. Holiday's over. Let's go on. So it's that's what takes the shine. That's what takes the passion out of everyday life, is that you're self-centered. If you're only passionate about yourself, then the only thing that makes you happy are when other people have something for you, something to give to you, something you can use them for. Oh, if they come in and they tell you how wonderful you are, and, oh, you're a terrific person, so much, you're so beautiful, you're so smart, and all like that, well, then you like those people because they're giving you things. But if they come in and they tell you all about their troubles and how much, difficulty they're having in life and how this hurts and that hurts and that kind of stuff, you say, I don't need that. I don't need somebody else's pain and trouble. I got my own pain and trouble. Oh, go away, Then
you're not being authentic, and you're not listening, and you're not.
Well, you're not doing anything, because it's not about you.
Right.
You own, you live in the center of your universe, and people either come to pay you homage or they're boring and in the way. So that's the way we tend to be, because we tend to be fearful, which makes us self-centered, which makes it all about us. And when it's about other, love is about other. When it's about other, now we're talking about love, not fear. Now it's, what can I do? How can I help? What can I say to old Uncle Fred that would cheer him up, that would make him feel like there's somebody there who understands, who cares? You see, because I do care. It's not that intellectually I'm going to try to trick Uncle Fred into believing that I care, because that would be a good thing to do. That's the wrong attitude. You have to really care, you see. And most people care little for anybody other than themselves. They're stuck in their own little thing. Well, that's if you look at what does it mean to grow up and mature? What's the difference between a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old? The difference is what maturity means, what growing up means, is getting rid of self-centeredness. When you're 3 or 4, you're very self-centered. Everything is about you, your needs, your wants. That's how we start, right? We're a baby. You're hungry, scream, somebody will feed you. You're cold, scream, somebody will feed you. Or put a coat on you or do something. You just tell people I have needs and people will meet those needs. Right. Well, that's the way we start. We can't help that because we are small. Our vision is like that. Young people are self-centered and that's what they're supposed to be. That's the way it is. Young puppies and young cats are self-centered, more self-centered as well. What growing up and maturing means is letting go of some of that self-centeredness and learning to see a bigger picture that has more people in it than just yourself. Learn to share your universe with others and not be at the center of it all the time. So as you care about other people, then you mature, you grow up, because when it's about other, it's love, you see. You get rid of the fear. It's about other, it's about love. It's about fear, it's about yourself. So that's really what our growing up is about, is letting go of that self-centeredness. So it's not all about us. That's the difference between, a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old. But what happens to most of us is rather than grow up, rather than actually get rid of our fear, we just learn to be cleverer in our social interactions. So we don't act like it's all about us. And we ask other people, well, how's your life going? And, how do you feel about things like that? Because we know if it's always, well, anybody want to listen to me? You will find that people will turn off to you. So we learn socially to pretend that we're interested in other people. We ask them so that then we can tell them something that, about us that we want to tell them. So that's what happens. We have a lot of people who feel mature and grown up because they've learned how to socialize. They have social skills. Social skills mean you're good at pretending that you care about other people. That's not such good skills to have. You should be that authentically. You should be that, not act it. Then you don't need social skills because you really do care about other people. See the difference? Definitely. So our kids grow up learning social skills, and we teach them to be polite, and we teach them to be other things, which is nice. It's a good thing to teach them, but we don't really teach them the difference between just being polite because that's the rules, or being polite because you care about people and that makes other people feel better and you get pleasure from other people feeling better about the things you do. So anyway, it's people can get real confused about finding themselves in this picture that I'm describing. But it's really goes back to the fear-love dichotomy. That's the whole thing. And if you find yourself on a treadmill just getting by, or if you find yourself on that treadmill and you're full of pain and you're not doing so well, that's just more of the same. You feel that pain because life's not the way you want it. Right. If you were to see it differently, if you had a different attitude, if you would interpret the world differently and not from such a self-centered, fearful place, you could find joy in that life rather than pain. But you choose pain, and it's your choice. You see, you could make other choices, but to do that, you have to get rid of fear, because your fear, if you have fear, your fear tends to make your choices. Your fear, your belief, and your ego is what makes your choices. And you're just kind of along for the ride. You're the zombie, right? You're just along for the ride. The fear, ego, and beliefs are running your life. You get rid of that stuff, then you start running your own life. And if it's not about you, then it's love and it's about other, and joy comes into your life. So that's just kind of as simple a way as I can make it, that hopefully is helpful to people if they can find themselves on that continuum someplace between fear and love, and have an intent, a really being level intent to change. That's what's required. Nothing much more than that's required, because if you really want to change, you will naturally do those things that will help you change. And if you don't really have a deep level intent to change, you won't do those things that will help you to change. So it's the intent that is the key. If you have that, the doing will come naturally.
All right. Well, that's been another great show. I have a feeling that it's going to be a very funny title, something like Time, Zombies, and Choices.
Yeah.
Well, you have been listening to News for the Heart with Tom Campbell. We've been getting to the heart of what matters, looking at us growing up, as we always kind of pursue in this, and moving from fear to love. So I always welcome our conversations, because we always have such interesting, yes, they may be very similar in different ways, but they're always something that we add into it that is here to help. So thank you.
Well, we hope so. That's the point, right? That's why we get together, is so we can say something that hopefully will be useful to other people.
Yes. All right. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Laurie. It's been fun as always.
Absolutely.
Have a question for Laurie and want to be on the next News from the Heart show? Drop us a line via instant feedback at bmajor.org. News from the Heart is brought to you by Intuitive Soul and is produced by Major Radio for Clear Channels, iHeartRadio, and bmajor.org.